Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to bology.com for more info.
Heard this of you in the past is that, you're a coach of coaches. So by doing that, you indirectly, you hit their team. And then it's the compound effect. You hit one of them and then one of their players becomes a coach one day and you've impacted them. When you talked about coachability, it made me think about things that we demand of our players, but that sometimes we struggle with ourselves. And I want my players to be coachable. And then the moment as a coach that I'm asked to do the same thing, I go back to this when I was directing for PGC years ago. Played in college and I'd been coaching in high school for a few years and, thought that I knew what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, one of the guys, the higher ups, gives me 3 pages of notes from my session. And coach, this feeling of, how dare you give me feedback, give me notes, just tell me that I did a great job and move on. And so my point is we want our players to be coachable, but then we need guys like you. We need materials out there that continue to challenge us, and we need to stay coachable.
One of the things I talked to Mano Watsa today, actually,
that's
a dear
that's
friend.
The guy. That's the guy that
he's a dear friend.
Yeah, he's
we're
awesome.
going to get together in 2 days in Phoenix. But one of the things that, that's why when I do something with a team, I always ask the head coach first and all of his assistants, are you coachable? And can I be truthful with you? Then I go to his players. So they can't believe how I could be with them for 20, 30 minutes. And all of a sudden their players are listening to me more than they were them, because all I did is just ask them 2 questions. But one of the things that you have to do is you have to have credibility. You have to have competency. And then the players got to be able to see that you have an incredible love for them and that you care for them. And you do that, and all those beautiful words like trust, and they all fit together, but it all is embodied by love first. And so, to me, it's natural, but I believe I can teach that to others, and I've had success with it. But not for myself, but for them, so they can be more effective with their kids. And I see it every year with different teams I'm working with, and I get such a kick out of it. And I just think that there's nothing better than to take a group that in the start of the season, they're just not very good. And then by the end of the year, they've really turned into a team that, to me, there's nothing better. It's priceless to me. And when you watch the NCAA tournament and you see the teams that lose and they talk about the coaches, Coach, what'd you say to your team in the locker room? And now if you watch, all the good ones are saying, I told them I loved them. You can't give a better message.
Yeah. And I love seeing the vulnerability too, that they show. They get a little bit choked up. They get a little bit teary, and it's, you can't, I guess you could fake that, but to me, when you have that level of love and care for your players, you don't want it to end. And not because you want to keep winning for success or trophies or championships, but you just want to be able to coach them the next day, be around them in the locker room the next day. That just comes through.
Yeah, Danny Hurley the other day, who I've known since literally his dad and I are friends from New Jersey. And I've known Danny and Bobby, his brother, since they were babies. And and to watch him, and he's a tough guy, to say he was walking around crying before their,
Yeah.
game the other day, I thought that was fabulous because that is what it's all about. Everyone thinks the scoreboard is what it's about. It's not the scoreboard. It's did you do the best you could with the group that you had? It's not winning and losing is our scoreboard, but geez, that's not what we should be judged by. You know,
Yes,
that's
sir. You mentioned a second ago credibility and then being competent and then having a level of care. And I was trying to think of like if you could look at a coach as a pie chart, you got to have all three of those pieces. If you have one, but not like let's say a high level of care, but you don't know what you're doing. Your players will feel that and they'll maybe lose a little bit of trust in what you say. If you are credible and you're competent, you know your X's and O's, but they don't believe you care in them, care
yeah.
about them. They won't invest fully in you. Coach, how do you get all three?
Well, there's actually about nine. There's about nine of them, but I think nowadays to be a coach, assistant coach, head coach, you have to be a leader. You have to be a person that's going to lead men or women, and that's by being a model for doing the right thing. And then on and leaders. I've studied leadership forever because I think it's one of the biggest things we're missing in our country in general. The great author John Maxwell and I spent a day together in
Wow.
August in Orlando, and he said, Brendan, he's 77 years old. He's just one of the most amazing humans on this earth. And he said, Brendan, I want you to help me become a better coach. I said, me help you? And he says, I have in my John Maxwell team, I have 55,000 coaches, but we need to be better. Help me, share with me some things that we can make them better. Well, first of all, when I got up off the floor,
Yeah, I
because
was gonna say, what you
I'm
what a
like,
moment right there.
I
Coach,
mean,
were you prepared?
no, not the least bit. I thought I was going to go in and listen to him talk, shake his hand, and kiss his ring, and the whole deal, man. And it was like this. I was flabbergasted,
Wow.
and then he handed me a Bible that he had, not a Trump Bible, but his Bible that he had just put with a combination of all of his leadership stuff mixed in with the Bible. It's one of my most prized possessions I have. It
Wow.
is with an autograph in there to the world's greatest coach. Oh my Lord. I said, oh Lord. I said, next to Jesus. He said, yeah, we're not counting him.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. And, but I think the thing is that, Conzo Martin played for me, former coach of Missouri, and now he's going to be the coach of Missouri State. And Conzo played for me. And he said to me, when I got him into coaching and he after he finished playing, and he said to me, and I went up in at Missouri, I did 3 days with his team to help him, get started. And he said to me, Coach, you're the best foot washer I've ever known. I said, what? I'm the what? I had no clue because I grew up Catholic and we
uh,
didn't study the Bible, man. They had their own little book, a secret book, that, oh
yeah.
my God, so I'm like going, I was half upset, but I knew Zoe would love me. So I said, what do you mean? He says, and he started telling me the story about Jesus at the Last Supper
Servant leadership. Yeah.
and about washing the feet of all those disciples that had turned on him.
Mm,
Right? All those
mm.
assistant coaches that had turned on the head coach. And he said, Coach, you're the best foot washer I've ever known. I went, oh Lord. And I actually had to have a couple of friends like John Gordon and them tell me what all that meant, who really study scripture and stuff. And I said, it's one of the proudest moments I've ever had as a coach.
That's incredible. And you're right on the money too, with Jesus being one of the greatest leaders and team builders of all
Mm-hmm.
time, because those 12 people who were not highly educated and came from all different types of backgrounds led the largest movement that the world's ever seen. And it started from 12. And talk within that team of 12, small group leaders, a group of three that he could kind of his own leadership team that he could bring a little bit closer, and that he trained up in a different way. For like, it is really a fascinating study, and a really cool direction that we are able to talk about there.
So one of the things that in studying leadership that I found now, because there's how many books in Barnes and Noble or any
Yeah,
of the stores would have on
it's
leadership,
its own section. Yeah.
and then that's the new ones, right?
Yeah.
And what I found is it comes down to one word nowadays: courage. Most people in leadership positions do not have courage. Think about it. Think about people you work with. Think about administrators you might work with, athletic directors, head coaches. Man, oh man, and I can almost point out when I go and visit a school, when I go and visit an NFL or NBA team, and I can almost tell. I don't care what position or how much money you make. I can tell by the way they run if they have courage.
Is it the
And if you,
fear of letting people down, the fear of upsetting people, that is maybe holding back them from being more courageous?
well, I mean, nowadays in college, coaches are afraid to have courage because they're afraid the kid might put his name in the darn portal.
Hmm.
Well, I put my name in the portal if you have no courage. If you don't, if you're, my thing is the reason I ask you, are you coachable and can I be truthful, is because kids nowadays, when you coach them, they think you're being critical of them. They think you're criticizing them. And it's just the opposite. That's why when I say to them, are you coachable and can I be truthful with you? My thing is now, I owe it to you to help you get better by telling you the truth. And you told me that you want this. It's like going to college or high school and saying I want to learn, but then all of a sudden
Yeah.
when you get a homework assignment or you have to read something, oh man, this is too much. Why are you giving my kid homework? We're here to learn. And so it's the same thing. You want me to coach you. You want me to help you get better. So I've now flipped it and tell the players at the places I'm doing a program, a seminar, I tell them right in front of their coaching staff, demand that they coach you.
Hmm.
Demand and be pissed off and put your name in the portal if they don't coach you. So I put it right on them to coach them.
Yeah.
But I tell them that's what you need to do. When Kevin Garnett went with Doc Rivers with the Celtics, as Kevin's told you that story, he demanded that Doc coach him. And Doc played for me. I drafted Doc. And he was such a pushback against coaching. Now he said, I told him, I said, Doc, you could be a really good coach. And he told me to go F myself, quote unquote. Uh, I have too much respect to use his language now. And he said, and I said, he said, Brendan, that's the last thing on earth I'll do. And this is Doc's 25th year in coaching, second to Popovich in the
Hmm.
NBA, but long tenure, 25 straight years.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
The guy that never wanted to have anything to do with coaching is now and one of the
But you
highest
but
paid
you
people
saw
around.
it. You saw
I
it.
saw that he had charisma. I thought he
Yep.
had love. I knew he had the ability to connect to people, and that's all those things you need. I knew he had credibility because he played for 13 years.
And it goes back to what you said at the very beginning about the role that coaches can play in actually changing the trajectory of a young person's life. And that was even as a man, an NBA player at that time. But we have that responsibility, that when we see attributes in our players, that and when we see how they could cultivate that into something that helps others. I mean, we got to speak that truth, speak that life into them.
Yeah, and one of the things in coaching you have to do, some people think is as important as anything, is you have to learn how to evaluate the talent on your team, evaluate how your team's playing evaluation is a huge part of it. Evaluate what's missing from your team. What do I need to work on? What do I need to practice more? And so part of my job is as a talent scout, someone that's been an NBA GM as well, I have to find talent and then I have to nurture it and coach it. And I would tell people all the time that I worked with and stuff. I told Joe Dumars when I had Joe, I said, Joe, I said, uh, he's a brilliant guy. Uh, I always tease him. He's the smartest person ever to went to McNeese State, the smartest guy ever from Natchitoches, Louisiana. But he's so bright, so brilliant. And I said to him, "You shouldn't be a coach." He said, "I want nothing to do with it." But I said, "You are one of the best leaders I've ever coached because Joe was not a leader by voice." That was Isaiah Lambier, those guys, man. They were out there, man. They were out there. They were leading the band. Joe led by example. He did the right thing every day, constantly. And that's why he's the second highest ranking person in the NBA to Adam Silver, and now number one person in basketball because the players respect him so much. Can you imagine? It would be like being in a cartel in Mexico. That was the Pistons. That was the bad boys, right? And this guy, they named an NBA Sportsmanship Award after. I mean, that's how incredible he was. That this is the most notorious, baddest ass team ever to play in the NBA. People were frightened to death of it. And this guy, who was the best defensive player in the league, this guy, he was the guy that could stop Jordan. He would guard every team's best player. But he was the NBA Sportsmanship winner. That tells you a lot about that guy.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.